Kamala Harris is gunning for the white Christian female vote, but she is losing Black male voters. She's got a plan to win them back, and it has to do with weed. Also, old footage has uncovered of Kamala Harris saying that she pushed, as Attorney General of California, the policy that allowed for murderers in prison to change, quote unquote, their sex and go into female prisons. Also, at the end of this episode, we will examine the trend that is witchcraft among women. Why is this on the rise? What does it mean? And how should we look at this from a biblical perspective? We've got all of this and a lot more on today's episode of Relatable. It's brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com. Use code Allie at checkout. That's goodranchers.com, code Allie. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. We've got a lot to get into today, First, I just want to thank you guys for your support of Toxic Empathy over the past couple days or day since the book came out. It came out yesterday, and I think the highest we were on the Amazon list was number 16 of all books overall. There are thousands of books on Amazon, and we were number 16 yesterday. I think we're number 22 right now. But here's what we got to do. Guys, because I was looking at this Amazon list and who is at the top of the Amazon list of books overall. And I mean, there are some books that I want to be on there, like, Casey Means, she's awesome. I want her book to be up there. But then we've got The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he is crazy, and he is far left, and we don't want his book to be number 7 anymore. We want Toxic Empathy to be number 7. So if y'all could help me out and we could do everything that we possibly can to get Toxic Empathy in the top 10 on Amazon overall, that would be awesome. And this is not just for me, because there's nothing really that happens to me if this moves from number 16 to number 10 or number 2. But I really want people to hear the message in this. I really want people to know how their compassion is being exploited by bad actors, because you and I might know the truth about abortion, the truth about illegal immigration, the truth about gender ideology, but a lot of people, even professing Christians, don't really know. They think they're being loving by being nuanced on abortion. They think they're being kind by either stating their pronouns or simply not talking about the destruction of transgenderism. They think that love is a fine motto that they don't really have any rebuttal to. They might think that no human being is illegal rings kind of true, and that Jesus told us to love the foreigner. We are commanded to love the sojourner in the Old Testament, and so maybe we shouldn't deport people. There are Christians who love Jesus, who think that social justice is justice, that either defunding the police or creating programs that are soft on crime, or incentivize homelessness or open drug use or violence, that these programs, that these policies are actually loving, are actually caring for the least of these. And they don't realize not only the dark underbelly in progressive ideology that is actually antithetical to the Christian faith in every way, they also don't realize that the policies that they are supporting, thinking that they're being compassionate and empathetic, are actually destroying the very people they're setting out to help, as well as those on the other side of the issue. So one of the most controversial things we talk about in this book, we go through the 5 lies. Abortion is healthcare. Trans women are women. Love is love. No human is illegal. Social justice is justice. Like, you hear those, and those are the actual circular mottos, the mantras that we hear from the left. And that should tell you something, that they use these circular mantras and they never define their terms. Like, what does trans women are women mean when you can't define what a woman is? They can't even tell you what a trans woman is. What does love is love mean if you can't define what love is? And that's one of the most controversial chapters, I think, in here, because even among conservatives, you'll see that they've kind of just abandoned the marriage question, that they don't really want to talk about the LGB part of the LGBTQ movement. And they won't really touch the ridiculousness of love is love. But love is love is the same illogical math as trans women are women. I was talking to someone recently who was speaking about the craziness of trans ideology, that we've just gone so far in that direction and we've got to go back. And it really started with people announcing their pronouns in the name of being nice or just kind of affirming someone's stated gender identity to be kind to them. But really, it goes back a lot further than that. It really goes back, you could say, in a lot of ways to feminist ideology, the queer theory ideology that was propagated several decades ago, but certainly it goes back to Obergefell. Certainly it goes back to redefining marriage, because when we said that marriage no longer has a natural definition of male and female, that it no longer matters whether you can naturally procreate within a marriage, that we can define it however we see fit. Well, then we said that men and women are arbitrary. That is when we decided that men and women are interchangeable. That is when we decided that gender is a social construct, that there's no biological significance to a husband or a wife or a mom or a dad. Now, you could say this goes back to feminist ideology again, but it certainly at least goes back to this idea that there is nothing special about a man and a woman and a husband and a wife. There's nothing special or distinct about marriage. And we go through it in this. And the cost of redefining marriage, both for the people in those unions, but also for the children that are being forced to be raised in a motherless and fatherless home. And, that chapter actually really challenged me, because I have wrestled with whether or not I think this is a legal question, whether or not the government should be involved in defining marriage at all. And so I walk through the arguments here and I tell you the conclusion that I've come to, just based on political history, based on the history of not just marriage, but cultures and countries in general. We look at it from a purely practical perspective. And then, of course, just like in every chapter, we not only look at the secular, scientific, logical, historical perspectives on all of these subjects, but most importantly, the biblical perspective on all of them. On all of these subjects, unfortunately, we've got professing Christians that are extremely mushy. And as I say in this book, I get that because I've been mushy on every single one of these topics. And it was the truth in love given to me graciously and gently, but persuasively, that changed my mind, and for the better. People's lives are on the line because of evangelical mushiness on issues like abortion and gender. And so that's why I wrote this book. And if you haven't noticed, the Kamala Harris campaign since the very beginning has been setting her sights on the white Christian woman. And I say white Christian woman because if you look at her advertisements, if you look at her marketing, that's exactly who she has a target on. And what do they use to get the Christian woman? The Christian woman who probably naturally leans conservative, who is kind of in the middle, could be persuaded either way. They use toxic empathy. They use toxic empathy to convince the Christian suburban mom that voting for Kamala Harris will protect miscarriage care, that voting for Kamala Harris will protect the poor migrant, that voting for Kamala Harris will protect the poor Black person on the margins of society, will put an end to racism, that voting for Kamala Harris will protect the child who feels like they're born in the wrong body, or will protect the couple that just wants to create a child, the same-sex couple that just wants to rent the womb and to buy the eggs. And it is through toxic empathy that women are persuaded to latch on to those progressive positions. And they're convinced that Kamala Harris is actually moderate. She's just the more loving candidate. And I am very gentle with that person who believes those things in this book, because in some ways I have been that person. This book is not about negating compassion. It's not about getting rid of love. It's actually about leaning into what love actually is and exchanging this superficial, harmful form of empathy for real, substantive truth in love, compassion. I love that Elisa Childers, she's an amazing apologist, and I love how she described this book as disarmingly compassionate and emotionally compelling, because as jam-packed as it is with facts and statistics and data and arguments, I also wanted you to see the heart of what I'm saying, that really we are supposed to care for people better than the world does, which means we're not called to superficial toxic empathy. We're called to something much deeper and better. And that's what this book is about. So at the end, it's not that I want people to not have any empathy. I want people at the end of this to have courage. I want people at the end of this to be more loving and to have a better picture of how we can serve those who are vulnerable than we did before. So I encourage you not only to get this book yourself, please get it for all of your friends, especially your female friends, but get it for your pastor. Get it for your women's minister. See, it's a short book. It took us a long time to condense all of this information. I could easily write a 100,000 word book. This is probably a little over 50,000 words. It's easy to read. It was important for me to be able to condense and simplify this information. And I just encourage you to get it for your small group. Get it for those who are on the fence, especially before the election. But I mean, it definitely transcends electoral politics. But I urge you to get it for yourself. Get it for those who are on the fence in your life. Get it for those who are politically apathetic. Get it for those in the mushy middle. Get it for those who are easily persuaded by this toxic empathy and just need to know the truth in a way that is not harsh, but is gentle, but to the point. And so that's who this book is for. And it's urgent in the next 2 weeks to get as many Christians to read this book as possible. So we'll link the Amazon link. It's important to try to order it from Amazon if you can, but you can get it in person wherever books are sold. Almost wherever books are sold, definitely Barnes and Noble and, Hobby Lobby, Christian bookstores, but order it online. You can go to toxicempathy.com as well to see where else you can buy it, but definitely click that Amazon link in the description. Purchase it. Also, if you've already purchased it, helps me out a lot to leave a 5-star review on Amazon. So please do that because the trolls are out in full force. I'm continuing to get threats over this. I'm continuing to be told that I'm the worst person in the world, to go F myself, that I should be put in a re-education camp, that I know nothing about Christ, that I know nothing about Christianity whatsoever because of the title of this book. The trolls, the progressive activists, don't want you to read it, and that's all the more reason that we should. All right. Speaking of who Kamala Harris is gunning for, she's actually losing some voters in key demographics, even as she is picking up, unfortunately, some Christian women. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Let me pause and tell you about our first sponsor for the day. It's We Heart Nutrition. Absolutely love We Heart Nutrition. I use their supplements every day. Their prenatal vitamins, their iron supplements. Game changer in my life. They keep me healthy. For the first time in like forever, I got blood work done that came back as really good for my iron levels. I always run anemic. I've taken all different kinds of iron supplements. None of them seem to help. And yet when I started taking We Heart Nutrition a few months after I began their iron supplement, I got the blood work back from my functional medicine doctor. She said, your iron levels are amazing. I don't know what else to attribute that to except for We Heart Nutrition. This is a Christian family-owned company. They're pro-life. They are just amazing people. Right now, if you place an order of $50 or more, you get a free bamboo capsule box. I've got it right here. It's super cute. I've got one of these at home with all natural bamboo. Got a little heart right there. And then it's got the days of the week engraved on the inside. I just took this with me to a trip. It made it a lot easier to make sure that I'm keeping up with all of my vitamins. If you go to weheartnutrition.com and use code Allie, you get 20% off your order. That's weheartnutrition.com, code Allie. Okay, I'm just warning you. I've got 5 ads today, and I took 12 minutes to get to the first one, which means that the rest of the ads are going to be a little bit close together. But look, I just want to say, like, ads are really good. It's how you get to listen to and watch this for free. And the fact that there are so many awesome pro-life Christian conservative companies that want to support the relatable family, like, that should be something that's super encouraging to us. And I'm just so grateful to all of my sponsors and to all of you who understand when we do have a lot of ads that it's actually really good news for us and good news for relatable. Okay, so Kamala Harris, I thought this was so interesting, and Barack Obama is like losing it over this, that Kamala Harris is not doing well with Black voters. The polling shows that Trump could possibly get a higher percentage of Black male voters than any Republican since 1960. The Black Americans, they are by far the most politically homogenous group of any demographic, way more than white evangelicals, way more than Hispanics, more than Catholics, more than any other group. They are the most homogenous. The vast majority of them every single time will vote for Democrat. It's typically in like the 90th percentile. A Democrat's margin among Black men, specifically among Obama, was 81 points. With Clinton, it was 63 points. Biden, 53 points. And Harris, 41 points. And so this is changing. It's been chipped away every election cycle. Democrats margin, that was actually the margin, Black men ages 18 to 44. Overall, we still see that margin is going down. With Harris, overall, Black men are supporting her by 54 points. And so what's interesting is that it's really among young Black men specifically that Harris is losing support. The decreasing trend applies to Black women as well, despite the fact that Harris herself could be the first Black female president. Now, it is still by a lot that she is winning with Black women, but Obama was winning Black women by a margin of 93. Clinton also 93. Biden 85. Harris 71. So it's really interesting as she has been targeting white women. She has lost a lot of the Black female vote. And I think I'm wondering what the reason is for that. If she's just not as inspiring and as relatable as she thought. Is it because of her record of putting so many, as some people say, when she was Attorney General of California, some people criticize her for putting Black men in jail for marijuana for far longer than they should have been in jail. So maybe it's some of that. I wonder about the influence of people like Candace Owens, who has obviously a huge audience, but probably the highest proportion on the conservative side of Black listeners and viewers. And she's had a lot of interesting things to say recently about Kamala Harris. And I'm sure it's not only her. There are a lot of people on the conservative side who have been working very hard at appealing to all different kinds of voters. But maybe it is because Kamala Harris just isn't as inspiring as she thinks she is. But Harris, of course, she's got a strategy for trying to win Black men. And this is it. It's called the Opportunity Agenda for Black Men. Provide 1 million forgivable loans up to $20,000 to Black entrepreneurs and others who have a good idea, but don't have the resources, connections, or access to capital to get their business off the ground. So, I just want to translate this. She is saying that she is going to provide forgivable loans to Black entrepreneurs. So if you are a white entrepreneur and you have a good idea, but you don't have the resources or the connections or access to capital, you are going to be discriminated against. Because of the color of your skin, you will not have access to this privilege. You won't have access to this program. That's not even close to legal. That's not even close to constitutional. Like, you are purposely discriminating against someone because of their skin color. That, of course, goes back to the whole anti-racist ideology that was primarily propagated by Ibram X. Kendi, that the only way to rectify past discrimination is current discrimination. Of course, injustice is still injustice. Discriminating against someone because of the color of their skin, rewarding someone simply because they have a certain amount of melanin, is called partiality. It's evil, abhorrent to God. The God who created justice says that you are to have no partiality in your judgments. You don't defer to the poor or to the great. I think we can extrapolate that to mean that we're not to defer to people because of the color of their skin. But of course, she said right before the last election, like, you'll remember that tweet that she put out, that video that she put out that said, equality means we're given equal opportunities, but equity means we all end up in the same place. That's communism, girl. That's communism. You can't guarantee that everyone ends up in the same place without tyranny. And by the way, we're never guaranteed to end up in the same place. Two people from the same family don't even end up in the same place in life, and they had all the same resources and upbringing, were raised in the same house, and they don't even end up in the same place. And yet we expect two people from totally two different backgrounds, two different regions, two different classes to end up in the same place, or else we live in an unfair system. Equality of outcome is not equity. Equity, the true meaning of equity, according to the Bible, is impartial law-giving, impartial judgments. But just like empathy, just like compassion, love, tolerance, all of these things, the left exploits previously good ideas and turns them into something very bad. Launch a national health equity initiative focused on Black men. Again, let's just read into this. They always use euphemisms because they can't actually say what they mean. What leftists always mean by equity is discriminating against white people. So that's how we can read into that. Also, this is very important to appeal to Black men, according to her, legalize marijuana at the federal level to break down unjust legal barriers that hold Black men and other Americans back. I just think that it's strange. Like, is that not playing upon a trope? Is that not playing into the stereotype that Black men just want to get high on marijuana? That this is such a big and important thing to the entire Black population that she has to make sure that you don't go to jail for using something like weed? Like, I just think it's strange because Democrats do this a lot, and Republicans actually do this too. And I think it's gross and it's sad that when Republicans and Democrats are talking about Black issues, they're almost always talking about crime and weed. Like, I know a lot of Black people, that's not their number one concern. That's not the thing that they're worried about when it comes to this election. I mean, they're worried about the economy. They're worried about immigration. They're worried about safe streets. And yet, we hear many times from both Republicans and Democrats that in order to appeal to Black voters, you have to make it easier to smoke weed and harder to go to jail. Yikes. I hope that this doesn't work. I hope that Harris's plan, that her agenda here doesn't work. So discrimination and easier to smoke and sell weed. Come on, please see through that. That is so, it's not just shallow, it should be insulting to your intelligence as a human being. Okay, we got to stop. I told you it would be quick. I got to stop and go for the next ad. And it's 7 Weeks Coffee. I love partnering with 7 Weeks Coffee. This is a pro-life coffee company. They call themselves 7 Weeks Coffee because it's 7 weeks gestation. That baby inside the womb is the size of a coffee bean. They believe that all babies, that all innocent human beings have a right to life. That's why they donate 10% of every sale to pro-life organizations. They have donated over $500,000 to these pro-life pregnancy centers that is translated into saving thousands of lives. Also, their coffee is top notch. It's the highest quality, cleanest coffee that you can get. It tastes really good. We got to share the arrows. Everyone got to have some 7 Weeks Coffee and they loved it. Join the Heartbeat Club. You can subscribe, get that box of coffee to your front door every month. And when you use my code Allie, you save 10%. And so that's a lot of savings right there. Go to 7weekscoffee.com, code Allie. We've also got Barack Obama. He was a part of the campaign over the past week, and he was talking to a group of black men. He wanted to give them some tough talk. Obama said that they're just misogynists. He said that you just don't like women. Here he is.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
So we've got Barack Obama saying that if you don't vote for Harris, you're not a man, basically, and you don't love women. And we had Joe Biden a few years ago say that if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. So you're going to keep voting for these people? Like, I always hear, even from Christians, that, yeah, sure, Republicans kind of get it right on the life stuff, but Democrats are helping the poor. They're helping black people. How? I mean, predominantly black communities have been voting for Democrats to lead their communities, to lead their cities for decades. How is the problem still Republicans? How is the problem still the system? The people that you are putting in charge of the system clearly aren't delivering the solutions that you're looking for. I mean, also, this is a big part of many black churches, Democrats, politicians coming in to campaign. I mean, the stranglehold that the Democrat Party has on black Americans does seem to be loosening, as the statistics show, and I praise God for that. I know of a lot of solid black pastors and, of course, black Christians who are ardently pro-life and who are extremely outspoken about what is good, right, and true. But predominantly, black communities and black churches ardently support Democrats and pretty much unconditionally. And these manipulation tactics, unfortunately, I think can be effective, that you're not really a man, you don't really love women, you're not really black, you don't care about your community if you don't vote Democrat. I mean, what have they done for you, really? Like, how has that translated into actual help? I mean, it just doesn't make sense that you're voting for the same party over and over again and are still saying the system is out, is out to get certain demographics. Okay, well, maybe we should change who is in charge of the system in your community. Harris, in a radio interview, also said that she is open to reparations. Charlemagne the God asked her about this. She said, to your question about reparations, it has to be studied. There's no question about that. I've been very clear about that position. She didn't give a position, which, of course, a lot of politicians do that. And, of course, she explained that she grew up in the middle class, because that's how you answer. When someone asks you something, when Chief Relatable is like, hey, like, how much did you spend at Trader Joe's? And I'm like, well, I grew up in a middle class family. And then we just stare at each other in silence for 10 seconds until I walk away. And that's a really good strategy. I think that more of us should, when we don't want to answer a question, we can just start saying, I grew up in a middle-class family. Of course, reparations is a horrible idea and a stupid position. There is no reason for the white person who lives truly in the middle-class neighborhood to pay reparations to Beyonce. Sorry. I just don't think that's justice. Like, I just don't think that the white family who is struggling to survive should be paying reparations to Oprah and Barack Obama. And by the way, we don't even know which people today are related to slaves from 200 years ago? Is it like, what do we do with people who are half black, half white? What do we do with the white people whose grandparents came here after slavery was abolished? Like, who do we decide is responsible for the slavery that occurred? Is it just people who kind of look white? Who do we decide are the victims? Is it just people who kind of look black? Like, is that how we're really basing justice? I heard, Latasha Morrison, she wrote Be the Bridge. And, we talk about where I think that she is just so wrong when it comes to so-called racial reconciliation and social justice when it comes to race. But a lot of churches, they promote her books of Be the Bridge. And I've heard her say in speeches in defense of reparations and the work that she's doing, if you wrecked my car, I expect you to pay for it. I didn't wreck your car. None of us did. And so none of us are responsible for paying for it. And Kamala Harris, she knows this is a radical position. That's why she didn't push any farther on that. Sagar and Jetty, he's great. We've had him on the show before, and I always love his commentary. It's always so interesting. He hates weed, and like we are on the same page. He hates weed in Europe and people dressing bad, and he hates daylight savings time. And I just appreciate people who have strong opinions about things like that. And Matt Walsh is the same way. I'm like, why are we even talking about this? I don't know, but I love that you're passionate about it. But Sagar and I definitely agree on hating weed. And he said this. Oh, Tim Miller, the Bulwark guy. He said, because black people have been disproportionality jailed. Womp womp. I'm gonna give you the BOD, Tim Miller, have been disproportionately jailed for weed usage, while rich white kids at liberal arts schools have ripped the bong with impunity for decades. Hope that clears it up. These people are so smug. Sagar said, only weed logic can lead you to this. Because of injustice in the past, we must legalize poison and let the same people we imprisoned sell it to children and other addicts. So true. Like, even if something is true, even if that is true, the picture that Tim Miller painted, even if that is real, that doesn't support legalizing and making more accessible something like marijuana that can cause psychosis and schizophrenia, that can hamper brain development when minors use it. There's nothing positive about marijuana. It should continue to be illegal and to be as difficult to get as possible. Well, Kamala Harris, she continues to be completely radical, and she wants you to forget about that, but we're not going to let you forget about that. So let me get into that in a second. Let me pause and tell you about our third sponsor. It's Jase Medical. Hurricane Milton made landfall last week near Siesta Key, Florida, as a Category 3 storm. At least 16 people died. So tragic. 2 million people were without power in Florida as of this weekend. It's following on the heels of the tragic loss of life with Hurricane Helene, but it just reminds us that we really need to be prepared for these events, whether you live in a place where there are tornadoes or floods or earthquakes. All kinds of these calamities could happen just depending on where you live, or blizzards or heat waves. You just want to be prepared. There could always be a reason why you can't get the medication that you need. You don't want to be in a position where you need antibiotics and cannot get them, because antibiotics can save lives. That's why you need a Jase case. They'll give you an emergency stash of antibiotics that you can take when you need them. And you can also get the Jase Daily, which is a year-long supply of the prescriptions that you and your family rely on. Go to jase.com/Allie for a discount. That's jase.com/Allie. Okay, we're going to quickly go through this one because I want to get to this more cultural, less political story. But gosh, there's so much happening in electoral politics, and I just so badly want to make sure that all of you who can vote, vote and that you know what is at stake and you know actually who is on the ballot. So this was reported on October 15th, so just yesterday, by Washington Free Beacon. I saw a tweet by Charlie Kirk going around that Kamala Harris, that she supports the sex change of incarcerated men. And actually, this has manifested itself in real policy in the state of California and has resulted in men going in female prisons and assaulting them. So I want to play you this clip of Kamala Harris saying this herself so you know it's not an exaggeration. And then I'm going to tell you a little story about how this policy has actually affected people. Here's thought 3.
When I was Attorney General, I learned that the California Department of Corrections, which was a client of mine, that they were standing in the way of surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. And there was a specific case. And when I learned about the case, I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that that transgender woman got the services she was deserving. So it wasn't only about that case. I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need.
Okay, so you heard it. She is the one in the state of California who championed sex change, quote unquote. It's not possible to change your sex, gender reassignment, quote unquote, surgeries for men, and then for them to be transferred to female prisons. Now, we know from talking to many of these journalists that we've had on the show that women have been impregnated. Women have been raped by these men who say they just want top surgery, say they don't want bottom surgery, say they don't want any procedure at all. They just want to be able to grow their hair out and say that they're a woman. Well, gender ideology says that you are who you say you are, that biology is really arbitrary. It has no authority whatsoever. So if a man, a rapist, a pedophile, a murderer decides that he is a woman because women's prisons are obviously safer, they're in some cases a little cushier, a little nicer, he can do that. And he is transferred into a woman's prison. Now, Kamala Harris says that she is representing women, that she is the party of women, that she is the party of freedom. Now, remember, what do Democrats mean when they say they're the party of freedom? What do they mean when they say freedom? Sexual immorality and abortion. And gender confusion, gender deception falls under that sexual immorality umbrella. So there was a real person named John Jacobson who decided after he went to prison for murder that he would become a woman. And because of Kamala Harris's policies, he got to go into the women's prison. In 2004, John Jacobson lured Thomas and Jackie Hawks onto their boat off the California coast, tied them to the vessel's anchor. This is very disturbing, okay? Threw them overboard before grabbing a beer from the fridge and starting to fish. Jacobson told ABC News that he murdered the married couple to obtain money for a sex change surgery. So he drowned this couple by tying them to an anchor. He was convicted of murdering the couple along with a previous murder. He now sits on death row. Last year, Jacobson's dreams of becoming a woman finally came true when California taxpayers footed the bill for his gender transition surgery. A move made possible thanks to policies and precedents set during Kamala Harris's time as the state's attorney general. Jacobson said, "I did receive gender-affirming surgery and breast augmentation on April 5th, 2023. Jacobson also told the Free Beacon that he expects to transfer to a female prison fairly quickly. In his 2009 interview with ABC, Jacobson was clear that he is still attracted to females. "I'm not attracted to guys," he said, "but I wanted the surgery, and I knew 100% I wanted the surgery, but I only like females." The state's treatment of so-called transgender inmates changed radically during Kamala Harris's time in office. Now, I will say that I am a bit giddy that this person has been castrated. Like, I think that that's a fair punishment. I'm glad that he has been castrated. I think he should be castrated and stay in the male prison, though. And I think that he should get the death penalty, of course, because this is premeditated murder, and that is justice for murder. God says that in Genesis 9:6, that if you shed innocent blood, then your blood will be shed. He demands that for justice. And some people say, oh, the death penalty, it's so mean, it's so wrong. I think the Catholic Church is actually against the death penalty. They didn't used to be against the death penalty, but predominantly they are now. Okay, we're not nicer than God. And God, before the creation of Israel, before the creation of civilization, said that the death penalty is the just punishment for murder. And so, far from getting sex change surgeries, I think this guy should have been executed a long time ago. Swift execution for murders when it has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person has murdered, that is justice. That is justice, and it also mitigates evil. And that is what the state is supposed to do, to use the sword against evildoers and to reward those who do good. But Kamala Harris is the anti-justice candidate. She does the opposite of what the government instituted by God is supposed to do. She rewards those who do evil, like this person, and she punishes those who do good, like David Daleiden, like the pregnancy centers. Investigated David Daleiden for his pro-life reporting. He's still dealing with that. Forced pregnancy centers to advertise for abortion. The Supreme Court overturned that FACT Act, thankfully. But that's who Kamala Harris is. She rewards those who do evil. She punishes those who do good. And we actually still see this today in the Harris-Biden administration. There's a woman named Bevelyn Beatty Williams, and she has just been sentenced to 3.5 years in federal prison. She is a mom of a toddler. She is a pro-life protester, a pro-life activist, and she was arrested and charged for unlawful assembly, okay? Not violence, unlawful assembly in the state of New York because she was peacefully protesting outside of a Planned Parenthood. And you might think, well, this is unconstitutional. Our right to assembly, our right to protest is protected by the Constitution. Look, the Constitution is a piece of paper until someone is willing to defend it, until someone is willing to enforce it. Right now, the powers that be, the DOJ, don't give a flying rip about the Constitution. She, of course, is not the first pro-lifer to be jailed by the Biden administration. Joan Bell, 74 years old, imprisoned by the Harris-Biden administration. We've got Herb Garrity, who was on our show, a pro-lifer who protested. And I think about Herb's words all the time. That nothing that someone who is imprisoned endures compares to the pain that babies endure in an abortion. And these are the pro-lifers who have been imprisoned by the FACE Act, through the FACE Act by the Harris-Biden administration. She does not care one bit about your constitutional rights. She rewards evil and she punishes good. It is your responsibility, Christian, to vote against that. It is your duty, Christian, to vote against that. Are you going to vote for the guy that would probably pardon Joan Bell? That I can almost guarantee you will pardon Joan Bell and Bevelyn Beatty? Or are you going to vote for the person who is going to throw more pro-lifers in jail? Which one? Or are you just not going to vote? Are you going to sit out? Because, well, neither of them are perfect. Can I read you something? Let me read you what one of my pro-life friends posted on her Instagram. And she's certainly not MAGA. She is conservative, but she's probably moderate on some things. And her name is Christina Bennett. She works with Live Action. She is so passionate for the unborn and has done so much work, but she and I probably don't agree on every policy outside of abortion, but we totally agree on the evil of abortion, the dignity of the unborn. Her mother chose life. She was almost aborted, and she's just used her passion to save so many. And she's friends with Bevelyn. And here's what she wrote when Bevelyn said, yeah, I'm going to jail. Bevelyn is going to prison today, by the way. Here's what Christina wrote on Instagram. She posted a video very upset. She said, I'm just brokenhearted to hear Bevelyn Beatty Williams is going to jail tomorrow for her pro-life activism. At the end of her Facebook post, she said, please don't forget to vote and do all you can to elect leaders who stand for justice. Christina said, guys, I've been on the fence because I'm so brokenhearted over compromise regarding abortion with the Republican Party. I wanted to do a write-in. Last week, a friend who is also facing prison for her activism asked me to vote for Trump regardless. I made a covenant before God I wouldn't vote for someone who is not pro-life, so I wanted to do a write-in. But my friend facing prison asked me, believing he could possibly pardon her. Now today, Beth is asking before she goes to prison tomorrow, so I will vote for her and for the possibility that they could be pardoned. People can think what they may, and I don't care. Never did I imagine I'd see a beautiful young Black mother going to jail for trying to save babies. Vote for Joan Bell. Vote for Bevelyn. Vote for true justice. If you don't like Trump, at the very least, vote against the woman who is putting pro-lifers in jail and who is funded by those killing the babies. All right, got one more topic for today. Let me tell you about our next sponsor. It is Birch Gold. There's a lot at stake in this upcoming election, regardless of who is sitting in the White House. The fuse on the economy has already been lit. Even 4 years of a conservative presidency will not be enough to turn the tide on our $35 trillion national debt. If the left wins, it's like throwing gas on a dumpster fire. You don't have a lot of control over the election's outcome aside from your own vote, but you can protect your savings. Birch Gold will help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, tax-free and penalty-free, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Text the word Allie to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold and trust Birch Gold to protect your savings. Text Allie to the number 989898 today. Okay, speaking of Kamala Harris, we're talking about witches, okay? Because I got this text from my brother the other day. And it was the magazine rack at a grocery store in the checkout aisle. And it was a magazine that said witches. And on the front was a woman clearly engaging in some kind of satanic ritual. And on the side it said, discover their secretive and mysterious practices, ancient traditions, persecution, and the Salem witch trials, modern witchcraft and spellwork. So this is clearly a glorification of witchcraft. And this is actually a trend that we've been seeing for the past few years. I did an episode maybe in 2020 called The Rise of the Millennial Witches, because there is a big trend on witch talk for young women who don't necessarily look demonic. They just look like your normal suburban mom, casting spells, burning sage, using their crystals. And, you know, witchcraft doesn't necessarily always look like a Ouija board or like dyeing your hair black and casting spells. Today, it looks more like manifesting. Today, it looks more like transcendental meditation, or it looks a lot more new age. And we've had conversations with former witches. We've had conversations with former psychics, with former new age people who have engaged in this kind of thing. And it starts typically through reading a Cosmo article about your sign, getting into astrology, thinking about who your real spiritual goddess self is. All of these things that are propagated a lot in the self-help, self-empowerment world. Even in some of the Christian worlds, this idea that, of course, we talk about so much in my first book, You're Not Enough, that there's this inner goddess on the inside. She just needs to be released. And basically, if you say the right things, if you imagine the future that you want, and you throw off all of the toxic people and expectations and standards and societal norms, then she'll be released and she'll finally get everything she wants. It goes all the way back to the garden. I mean, Eve was tempted with wanting to be like God. This is the root of witchcraft today. I saw this tweet from someone named Allie on X, and she said, I don't understand why so many women pretend they're witches now. Is it an aesthetic? Harry Potter cringe gone too far? Actual witchcraft? And then she, posts this picture of someone who is like dressed as a witch, very disturbing. But the truth is, this is a trend, and this was reported by British Vogue, the Vogue Guide to Being a Modern Witch. They say from nostalgic witch shows like the 1996 sitcom Sabrina the Teenage Witch to newer Netflix releases, witch stereotypes are reemerging in popularity, but with a different look thanks to Gen Z. Gen Z's embrace of New Age spiritualism has driven the rise of Witchcore and whimsigoth aesthetics. Like, can we not? I think we need another famine. Like, we have way too much time on our hands, which merge romantic, mystical vibes with grungy, Gothic undertones. The witchcore aesthetic is influenced by ancient rituals and practices. So here, it's not just about following a trend that you saw and you think is cute. They're saying it is influenced by ancient rituals and practices, from potion making and herbalism to tarot card reading, sage burning, and crystal healing. It's a blend of vintage lace dresses with oversized button downs and corsets thrown on for good measure. You could literally find all of this at Madewell. All reminiscent of nature's very own color palette. Think dark, earthy tones that wouldn't look out of place at an autumnal festival. The terms witch or witchy cover a broad spectrum of things. It might mean someone who practices witchcraft, or it might refer to more of an Instagrammable aesthetic choice more than anything else. According to Vogue, today, witchery is about normalizing a woman's darker side, reconnecting with ancient practices and sacred care, rejecting modern idealizations of women as angels. Long gone are the antiquated stereotypes of witches practicing black magic or white magic. Modern witches can be whatever they choose. And so we've got some pictures of Witchcore, which this is what Satan does. He always distorts like the beauty of creation. So sun, moon, stars, flowers, even sage, crystals, all these things were created by God, but are being manipulated into something that is evil, which is, of course, being the god of self. I saw this tweet. One of the draws of witchcraft is that it has an aesthetic women find appealing. Dried flowers, candles, pretty little herbs and bottles. Bland modern churches rid of visual elements will simply not be able to compete with this. Oh my gosh, that's so dumb. Okay, apparently this is Taylor Swift in Witchcore. And this is in January of this year. This is what Witchcore looks like. We've got a full screen of that. So apparently this is Witchcore, and Taylor Swift said in December of 2020, witches be like, sometimes I just want to listen to music while pining away, sulking, staring out a window. It's me. I'm witches. Never fear. The Willow Lonely Witch remix is here. Whatever that means. And, a lot of people said that in her Eras tour, there was a ton of witchcore. And that's true. There was. Like, even if you don't think that there was like a spiritual aspect to her talking about spells and all of that, she definitely had a witch aesthetic. She definitely dressed up like a witch, and she played upon a lot of those dark themes. Even some of the things she talks about, like a twin flame, that's a very new age, I would even say like a witchy kind of term. It's a supernatural idea that basically we are our own gods, or we are either informed by or moved by the universe. There are things we do to be in sync with the universe, to be out of sync with the universe. It's just plain old paganism. And we've got this like picture of the Taylor Swift concert. No, we've got a video of the Taylor Swift concert where, look, they're in this like witch circle. Here's someone. Okay, very disturbing. They're basically bowing down to her. And look, I like Taylor Swift songs. I get it. But this is so, that is clearly demonic. I'm not saying she's the only artist that's demonic, but she does have a particular hold on a lot of Christian women who tend to think that she's more innocent than Sexy Red. And I'm just not sure that's true. There's actually maybe even more of a threat to her because she has this very like appealing, normal girl aesthetic, and yet she plays upon these themes that are really dark. And I hadn't actually seen this before, so I'm kind of disturbed by that because, I mean, Satan disguises himself as an angel of light, and I think the more mainstream these things become, the less we stigmatize them and the less we see what a threat they are. So I want to talk about why I think this is important just to close out the episode in just a second. Let me tell you about our last sponsor. It's Patriot Mobile. Americans are tired and frustrated by a stalling economy, inflation, endless wars. You want to be able to partner with people that align with what you believe in. Patriot Mobile is America's Christian conservative wireless provider. They are fighting for the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, our military first responder heroes. They have the same nationwide coverage as all three major networks, but you get to have access to that without funding the left. They've got a 100% U.S.-based customer service team. Go to patriotmobile.com/Allie. Get a free month when you use offer code Allie. That's patriotmobile.com/Allie. Now, really, I mean, this goes hand in hand with feminism. It is self-empowerment. It is wanting to take matters into your own hands, your relationships into your own hands, your success into your own hands. And so even if someone is not wearing a pointy hat and walking around with their black cat, they might be imbibing and exhibiting these aspects of witchcraft. That's all self-empowerment is. These incantations and meditations and even meditative prayers that you're saying over and over again in the hopes that some outcome would manifest itself one day. That is all part of witchcraft. The truth is that if we find all of these problems in our lives inside of ourselves, if we're depressed, if we're anxious, if we feel like we're lacking, insufficient, we won't find the solution for those things also inside of ourselves. And people love the supernatural. They love to feel like they can tap into divine help. They love to know that there's something bigger than them, but they don't want the self-denial and the self-sacrifice that comes with Christianity. But this is darkness. I've had people say that, I think I can combine the sage burning, this, crystal healing and all of this stuff with Christianity. There's some parts of, channeling a medium or going to a psychic that are fine. You can definitely combine that with Christianity. Look, that's called syncretism. That is strictly forbidden in Christianity. You can actually see when Jesus is talking to the churches in the book of Revelation, one of the things that he condemns is that syncretism, trying to wed light and darkness. And we can read all the way in Deuteronomy that God hates witchcraft. And this is a principle that still stands today. This is not exclusive to ancient Israel. Deuteronomy 18:10, there shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes, or interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or a charmer, or a medium, or a necromancer, or one who inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. I saw this really huge fitness influencer, Kate Itzinas, I think that, or Kayla Itzinas. I've followed her for a long time, actually. But she posted the other day how she had this amazing experience with a medium. I'm pretty sure the Kardashians have done this kind of thing. There's a new Netflix show in which a medium was glorified, and people think that they're really talking to their loved ones. No, you're talking to a demon, and that's not something you should mess with. God takes witchcraft very seriously. Exodus 22:18, you shall not permit a sorceress to live. Yikes. Leviticus 20:27, a man or a woman who is a medium or a necromancer shall be put to death. They shall be stoned with stones. Their blood shall be upon them. 1 Samuel 15:23, for rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Galatians 5:19 through 21. Now the work, this is the New Testament. Some people think we just disregard the Old Testament. That is not a rightful handling of Scripture. Galatians 5:19 through 21. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. I warned you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. And look, there's something there for all of us, by the way. Idolatry, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries. Those people will not inherit the kingdom of God. Ooh, all of us better be working out our salvation with fear and trembling, knowing that it is by grace we have been saved, but that our obedience is evidence of the faith and the grace that saves us. And so let us make sure we are walking in holiness with Christ, and to take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. That is Ephesians 4. So it's unfortunate that this is a trend, but Christians have to, as always, speak out against it, just as we speak out against all forms of darkness, witchcraft or not. Get my book, Toxic Empathy, in the link in this description. You will not regret it. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back here tomorrow.